How much paint do you actually need to buy for your painting project? I'll show you exactly how to figure that out so that you don't overbuy product that you're not going to use. Might even save you a few shekels. Let's go. Yo, what's cracking, folks? Jeremy Vassar here with Practical Painting. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to measure a room to determine how much paint you actually need to be able to paint that room. And we're going to look at a typical bedroom, which I have some high-quality illustrations of here in a second. And then we'll go through my process for determining how much paint you need. It's super straightforward, and generally it's good to just do this, even if you just do kind of a rough version of it to determine how much paint you need. That way you're not buying too much. Particularly if you're getting a lot of tinted product because you can't return that, or you don't want to buy too little and then run out in the middle of your project and have to go back out to the paint store. So let's start with the typical room here, and just for the sake of this illustration, we're looking to paint the ceiling, the walls, and the trim, and we're doing 2 coats on everything. So that's kind of the baseline that we're going to be looking at in this example. So let's go ahead and look at the ceiling. All right, so here is the ceiling. The thing in the middle is supposed to be a ceiling fan. I was doing my best. And what you're going to need to determine the measurement is a tape measure. Generally, a 25-footer is good enough. If you want to get real snazzy, you can use something like this. This is a Bosch laser measurer, and this is awesome. This is what I use on all my quotes. Just shoots a laser over there and then tells you the distance. Super useful. One thing to note, when we're looking at ceiling paint, you want to look at the bottom or the back of a can, and as you look at the can of paint, it'll tell you how much square footage each can of paint will cover. Generally, any interior latex-based paint, they almost all have the same coverage. It's generally between 350 and 400 square feet. And if you're not familiar with square feet, it is just, imagine a square that is 1 foot by 1 foot, and then that square is what they're talking about. So this can of ceiling paint will cover roughly 400 square feet of a given surface. So that's what we're looking for, and those will kind of make sense as we get into the measurement. So what you want to do is actually measure the length and the width of the room. So you're just going to run your tape measure along one of the walls. We're dealing with a rectangle here, so we just need those 2 measurements. So in this particular example, the width is 12 feet, and then the length is 14 feet. That's a pretty standard dimension for a bedroom. All right, so you're going to take the length and the width and multiply those 2 numbers together. So that's 12 times 14 gives us 168 square feet, which is the total square footage for that ceiling. However, we will be doing 2 coats on the ceiling, so you double that number, which is going to give us 336 square feet that we have to deal with. Now, if you look at a can of ceiling paint like we just did, we know that it's going to cover between 350 and 400 square feet, which means 1 gallon of ceiling paint is all we're going to need to paint 2 coats on the ceiling in this room. So now we need to determine the wall surface area to determine how much paint we need. And it's the same thing as ceiling paint. If you look at any kind of standard issue wall paint, this is duration matte. See right there, it says like coverage, and it says 350 to 400 square feet. Generally, it's located somewhere thereabouts on the can. So now we need to go wall by wall and see how much square footage we're dealing with. So looking at wall number 1, you're going to take your tape measure or laser and determine the width, so from corner to corner, and then you got to measure from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. A couple ways you can do that, but pretty much you just run the tape from the bottom and then spool it up all the way to the top. Or if you have a sweet laser, then you just jam that thing on the ground and shoot it up to the ceiling. For these measurements, you only need to determine the ceiling height once, and then it's going to be the same for every wall. So on this first wall, it's going to be 12 feet wide by 8 feet tall, standard 8-foot high ceilings. 12 times 8 gives us 96 square feet. Then wall number 2, that is going to be the same deal. So that is 14 feet wide by 8 feet high. That gives us 112 square feet. Wall number 3 is 12 feet wide by 8 feet tall again, 96 square feet. And wall number 4, because this is a rectangle, is going to be 14 feet wide and 8 feet tall again, giving us 112 square feet. So Now, if you add all those up, it's going to give you about 416 square feet. And then for 2 coats, we can multiply that by 2. That's going to give us 832 square feet. Now, you might be wondering, because if you look at the walls, there's windows on some of them. We've got 2 sliding doors for the closets with some casings, and also the main entrance of the swing door, where that is eating up some of the surface area. If you want to get real crazy with it, you can measure out each of those doors and windows and determine how large those are, and then subtract that from your square feet or your total square footage. But it's generally, we're not like laying tile, so we don't have to get crazy specific with this. We want just more of like a ballpark. So if you, just for instance, if you wanted to subtract that out, if say we got a total of 832 square feet without any of that subtracted out, you're probably looking at like still over 700 square feet total for all that wall space. And that's going to lead us, for 2 coats, it's going to be 2 gallons of wall paint. So we figure each gallon of wall paint's covering roughly 400 square feet. 2 of that would give you 800, and we have a little bit less than 800 total square feet, because if you subtract it out, you know, all of the trim and the doors and things like that. Now, that this might not always be the case. If you have a room that has some big wall features, like some big built-in bookcases or something like that, then that might actually matter. That if you're not going to be painting that with the wall paint, you might want to subtract that out, and you might not have a lot of actual surface area to cover with your wall paint. But in the example that we're using in this one, standard 12 by 14 room, it's you're going to need 2 gallons of wall paint. Now, onward to the trim. If you look at our sample room that we're looking at, we've got some baseboard, a couple windows. We've got 2 sliding 6-panel doors, 1 6-panel swing door that's the main entrance to the room. If you're doing 1 coat, you might be able to get away with just 1 quart of trim paint. However, if you're doing 2 coats, you're cutting it awfully close with that quart, and a lot of times we just go straight to buying the gallon, because if you end up running out of that quart of paint and you have to buy another quart, you might as well have already bought a gallon, just from the way they price quarts. And just because of math and so forth, there's 4 quarts in a gallon. However, generally quarts running you about 20 bucks, and as soon as you buy 2 of them, that's like 40 bones. And the whole gallon of trim paint would probably be in that $45 to $55 region. So it's almost always more economical to just go ahead and buy a full gallon of trim paint. Alrighty, so for the example that we used in this video, we ended up with, for a standard 12 by 14 foot room with 8-foot high ceilings, we ended up with a gallon of ceiling paint, a gallon of trim paint, and 2 gallons of wall paint. This is pretty standard for most bedrooms you're going to run into that are kind of within that range. But if you want to be sure, take some measurements, do some maths, and then figure it out. If you happen to be doing some painting in your house, likely a bedroom since you're watching this video, check out my Painting a Bedroom in a Weekend video. Super helpful tips in there on how to orchestrate the logistics of that, part of which is selecting how much paint you need to buy. You're already ahead of the game. So, until next time, y'all take it easy, work smart, have a good one. Peace.
Amazing.